So what is going on with Brie? So the latest news with Brie Larson in the MCU is a bit of news, but a bit of non-news. So let's get right to it. Brie Larson was recently asked, "So what's going on with you in the MCU?" And she's like, "Can't really talk about it." And some people are speculating that she's been fired, she's gone, she's quitting. But what does this really mean, and how is this attached to, no nice way of saying it, the Black Kang dilemma? Well, if we look at her past statements, only last year she was very hopeful that she would still do something with Captain Marvel. So I would assume she is still doing Captain Marvel because it was very open-ended. But why is she not saying anything now? Well, I would assume the obvious, that she thought she was going to be doing the Kang Dynasty story, which, by the way, involved her friend who was doing the directing. So it seemed pretty obvious to her she was going to be doing something with the character, with the Kang story. But now that's shifting. But here I will need to correct people. People assume there too, wrongly, that, well, the problem with Jonathan is his court cases, convictions, all this drama with his girlfriends. Yes and no. Apparently the real problem here is, as always, the money. And Mr. Campea will enlighten us on the money dilemma.
And subsequent firing because of the Kang-heavy Antman and the Wasp Quantumania underperformed at the box office. The Hollywood Reporter article goes on to confirm that they are actually talking about just removing the Kang character altogether.
Kang did not make a lot of money with Ant-Man 3. Now, I have been really consistent here that I just don't really like this version of Kang. Usually try not to get into the race issue, but you got to get into the race issue. I just don't think it makes sense to make Kang black. It doesn't destroy the character. You can make Kang black, but I don't think it was a good idea. And being brutal, I didn't like Loki Kang. I didn't like Ant-Man 3 Kang. But I do think that Kang in Loki Season 2 was actually pretty interesting. So, mostly his Kang has not worked for me, but he is a good actor. Facts are facts, and Ant-Man 3 did not make a lot of money. So they're kind of stuck. If we keep going with Kang, so far the box office has been fairly weak. Was Ant-Man 3 an exception? Was it a rule? But apparently Kevin Feige's like, we're not going to take a risk. It's just way too much money. It's way too much resources. So it may not work. We're going to have to move on. But the problem is people like Brie are left kind of hanging, saying, well, what are we doing now? Well, they're still going to do the Avengers, and apparently 2 Avengers movies like Infinity War and Endgame, which I think were the worst films of all time. However, good or bad, they made a lot of money. They made a lot of money. So they want to make Avengers movies that make money. But they got to think through who will be the villain. And they're pulling in the Fantastic Four. They're pulling in the X-Men. So they will have quite a few choices. Galactus, Apocalypse. So they can create fairly easily a really powerful villain that can slap around Captain Marvel fairly easily. However, time is money, and they don't have too much time. So they got to focus on who or what will be the villain. Bad guy, bad girl, old threat, new threat, so on and so forth. I am fearful they will just be lazy and do a CGI threat again, because I just did not like how Thanos looked. They may get lazy and make a kind of CGI monstrosity and just put in a voice actor. And if anything happens, like another new scandal, well, just trade out the voice with another voice. It's looking a little wobbly at the moment, but apparently they will just be doing Avengers 5 or 6 or whatever. But the Kang story has been abandoned, but abandoned because of the money, not because, oh, Jonathan Majors, you're so toxic. It's Jonathan Majors, you're not a box office champion. But we'll wait and see. Maybe if Jonathan's box office gets really, really big, they'll be like, hey, maybe the Black Kang can work again. But I will say in closing, it is becoming a little alarming that the MCU has a problem with getting rid of, quote, black actors and replacing them with other black actors. It's becoming a bit of a alarming trend with them.